I also wanted to, before I jump into this particular psalm that we're going to look at in practice, take a moment to dedicate this study to my teacher, my beloved mentor and teacher, Rabbi Levi, who wrote this book called The Songs Ascending the Book of Psalms. He was a mentor to hundreds of HUC students and others throughout a really incredible lifetime and career, and recently passed away. And he really helped me to fall in love with the Psalms. I'll admit that it wasn't a genre that I immediately gravitated to, and his passion for the poetry and also the creative possibility in the Psalms was really meaningful for me. So in that spirit, I invite him into our study as well. Okay, so, and let's do a quick blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So a little bit, why Psalms, just as an introduction. Some of you online and in person may already have a deep connection to particular Psalms, and some, perhaps like myself, are newer to it. So I studied the Psalms as part of my rabbinic thesis, which was exploring resilience, spiritual resilience, and particularly thinking about the way that our texts and our rituals and sacred learning and poetry can be really incredible tools to access deeper resilience personally when moving through all kinds of challenges, changes, transitions. And the Psalms I found to be one of the most effective genres of all of the writing that we include in Jewish sacred text for a few reasons. There's space in the Psalms for kind of a cacophony of voices and emotions, from the wail of lament to the whisper of fear or doubt in the face of the unknown, to jubilant exultation and praise for God. Many of the Psalms that we sing on Shabbat, if you're familiar with that, are very praise heavy. I would say there's just this exuberance of Hallel, which is the word for praise. And what I appreciated in studying the Psalms more deeply is that actually there's, in the 150 sacred poems that are considered the Psalms in our canon, there truly is every emotional possibility, from just real doubt to outrage to anticipation to hope, and also certainly room for joy. And I think that this season of Elul invites all of those emotions in our own inner life and our own journeys as well. So I appreciate that. And the psalmist, and I say the psalmist because we don't actually know who the author of the Psalms is. And there's something to the fluidity of that, the anonymity of who the psalmist is. There's some attributions or voices within the lyrics that are ascribed to different biblical figures, including Moses and King David and King Solomon. But it really also leaves room for creative imagination, because we don't know who the author is. So we're not reading through the lens of one particular life, but really listening for what's the experience, both the inner life experience and the kind of circumstances that the psalmist finds himself in. So I find it to be a really helpful genre in that way for any kind of introspection, because I think that one of the challenges of Elul is that we all want to journey together to this great new year with all kinds of anticipation. And no two of us have lived the same year. So we all actually need a way into finding what for each of us is going to help speak to our experience. And the Psalms offer a lot of room for that. So each of the Psalms kind of offers its own journey, I would say, as well. what I love about them is that there can be you can start on this note of great joy and exuberance and confidence and devotion to God, and then a paragraph later just be in the depths of despair and anger with God, as we're going to see in this poem. And then to kind of emerge on the other end, there's often a little bit of a roller coaster or a journey, which also feels very human. That expression is a journey. So that's a little bit about the Psalms themselves. And when I was studying resilience for my thesis, what I particularly was moved by is the definition, the Webster Dictionary definition of resilience. One of them, at least, is the ability to absorb shock or impact and not be broken. So there's a softening there, and I really resonate with a lot of embodied practices: yoga, dance, meditation, stretching, kind of anything that gets me into my body. And so and the Psalms are also very embodied in a way. They really and we'll see that in this particular psalm. And there's a reason why I called this class From Mourning into Dancing, because there is actually a dance that comes out in this psalm. And so thinking about resilience, each of our own resilience, both emotionally and just in the sense of being a whole self, that the ability to absorb impact without breaking really requires us to be in our bodies, requires us to be open and to soften, to receive and to feel everything that we need to feel, so that we're not stiffened or hardened or defensive about the circumstances around us. So that's a little just lens into resilience. One way to understand it, and I'll certainly be curious for your thoughts later on as we go deeper into the psalm, what resilience means to you, and also what this particular psalm evokes for you, not just cerebrally, but kind of thinking about where you're feeling it in your body and in your lived experience. So with that was a long introduction, and now we are going to dive into the psalm, our title psalm. So I called the class From Mourning into Dancing, and that is actually that's one of the lyrics that we'll hear in this psalm, which is just really neat. But just a little bit more about it before we jump into it. First of all, I'll pause there. Does anyone have any questions or comments just on the psalms themselves before we start? Yeah. Yeah. Right. So most likely the psalmist, it's a good question, and I of course don't have an exact answer, but they were written after kind of the canonization of what we think of as the 5 books of Moses. So a lot of the references, it's a little anachronistic when a psalm is ascribed to Moses, or it's ascribed to King David or King Solomon. It doesn't mean that it was exactly written in that time, but we're thinking kind of like past the destruction of the Second Temple. So already with the people, a lot of the Psalms speak to the experience of exile and to being separated from God. So we're thinking this is beyond when the people were living in the land of Israel. That's kind of as specific as I can give you, but I can also kind of do a little bit, ask people who have a better sense, who've really studied to their best ability what the time frame is there. But yes, it is an enormous, again, this is part of where the creative imagination comes in, because the Psalms do reference, they reference Moses, they reference King David, they reference King Solomon, they reference certain places in time also. And the cool thing is that because they're anachronistic, we can jump right in and join the psalmists wherever they are and imagine what that is for us. So that's a particular, I think that's also a great thing to hold in mind as we think about Psalm 30, and the way Psalm 30 is used. So Psalm 30 is in addition, one thing that's unique about it is that associated with two different specific moments. One is Hanukkah. So thinking about, reigniting light and feeling hopeful, and kind of finding light in the dark. There's that sense. And also that Psalm 30 is a dedication to the house. So some people have Psalm 30 as kind of their Hanukkah Habayit, or welcome to the house. And I think about that also metaphorically in this season of Elul, that we're kind of coming home to God's house, or to our own selves. We talk about return and return. So what does it mean to kind of get your house in order and rededicate yourself to living in God's house? So that's the idea. That's kind of where the psalm has been used. So something to think about, and maybe that's helpful as entry into this psalm. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. Normally I would ask for others to read it, but I think in the interest of making sure everyone hears the lyrics read out loud and you can follow along on your screen, I'm just going to read it all the way through one time, and just invite you to hold on to one verse in particular, or even a word or a phrase if there's one that's resonating with you, or to just let the whole thing wash over you. But I will ask, after reading this psalm and taking a pause, what lyric might be speaking to you in this moment as we think about resilience, about your own inner home, and about this journey that the psalmist takes us on. Okay. And I'm going to read it in the English. The Hebrew is there, but I will say, I'll just read the first line in Hebrew. Mizmor Shir Hanukat Habayit LeDavid, a psalm of David, a song for the dedication of the house. I will exalt you, Adonai, for you drew me up as if from a well, and my enemies could not gloat over me. O Adonai, my God, I cried out to you and you healed me. Adonai, you have drawn my entire being up from Sheol, sustained my life, kept me from descending into a pit. Sing to Adonai, you devoted ones, and give thanks to God's renowned holiness. For God's anger is momentary, but God's favor is for a lifetime. One may weep by night, and by morning rejoice. I used to say, in my untroubled security, I shall never be shaken. Adonai, when you pleased, you made me stand sturdy as a mountain. When you hid your face, I was terrified. To you, Adonai, I call out, and to you I plead for mercy. What profit is there in my blood from my descent into the deep? Can dust praise you? Can it proclaim your steadfastness? Listen, Adonai, and be merciful to me. Be my helper. You have turned my mourning into dancing, have undone my sackcloth, and girded me with rejoicing, that my being might chant psalms to you and not keep silent. O Adonai, my God, I will ever praise you. There's a lot in that psalm. And again, I just want to thank Rabbi Levy. The translation for that psalm largely comes from Songs Ascending, which is his book. And he really worked to translate the psalms with real integrity, and also with a mind to making them translate into a modern context as well. So here we are. Before I offer any observations or notes, I'm curious, was there one verse or a line or a question that arose from you as you read and listened to the psalm? And here I'm going to invite folks to unmute themselves and give a little wave if they want to share, and also open to those who are present to share any reflections. Yes. Yes.
Rabbi Laura, we could not hear the comment.
Okay, yes, I'm going to repeat the comment. So this comment was coming from Ellen, and she was just saying that dance really fit the premise here, because there is this sort of rhythm of ascending to the heights and descending to the pits and then ascending again, and there's a real kind of like lyrical up and down and movement that is evoked in the imagery here. So yes, I certainly resonate with that. I mean, the image of the pit itself, it doesn't really get any lower than that sense of, so I think one thing that's important that's acknowledged here is that this psalm is not coming from a place of uninterrupted joy. There has been real pain and sorrow and suffering also in the poet's experience. And that they were drawn up from the pit, but they were there, and they feared being there. Any other, what else, what other lines or just reactions are you having to this song? Yes, all right, so we have some comments in person, and I'll do my best to repeat them, so if you don't hear immediately, we'll repeat it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Beautiful.
Rabbi Laura, this is Mark from TJC Programs. It sounds like there's a lot of distortion coming from the microphone. Is there any way to check the audio connection? Is there any way to?
The audio connection?
Yeah. Is anyone else hearing this distortion for the?
Yes,
If anyone
yes.
can unmute themselves.
Yes, we are. We are.
Everyone's hearing. Okay. Is there any way we can? Is there any kind of way to join? Disconnect your audio and rejoin with your audio? Let's see.
Hey.
It's my audio that.
Yeah, your audio for some reason there's.
Okay. I'm wondering if it's because we're outside with.
No, it sounds like a technical issue.
Okay, so if I leave the computer audio and then join again, is that the idea?
Yes, let's try that. Is there a way that you can dial in by phone to the connect by phone to the meeting? Let me see if I can walk you. On your toolbar, by the unmute button, there's a drop down. If you click that, it'll show your audio options, whether to join by phone or by computer audio. Do you see those options?
What should I switch to? Should I leave computer audio?
Yeah. Why don't we choose the phone audio instead if you want to dial in and join by phone audio? Do you have a phone that maybe a smartphone that you could?
I could do that. Yeah, it'll take a couple minutes.
Okay. Yeah, because it's really distorted. I don't know what it was great, and then suddenly there was distortion that it's really distorted now.
Is it still possible to come down to the to see it live? I was heading down there and they said to go on this, and it's really problematic.
Okay, it's a little frustrating. I'll be right back, I guess, with my phone if that feels like the best solution.
Yeah, I think we should connecting by phone just because it sounds like the microphone's really distorted. It was great, and then suddenly it just got distorted. I don't know why, but if we could do that, I think it would be beneficial.
If we live
Mark,
5
it
minutes
got
away,
distorted when the question was being asked, I think, by Ellen. Her voice was also distorted.
I see. Okay.
Actually, let's see.
Okay, I'll be right back then, I guess, with the phone. Sorry.
is it possible to come down there? I live 5 minutes away.
I think at this point that's not, unfortunately, that doesn't quite make sense by the time we're done. We're ending at 10:50. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's a little frustrating. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm still sensing a lot of distortion.
Okay. Those of you who are online, I guess this is a good time to pause and think more deeply about the psalm, and perhaps something, a reflection will come up there that we can share together. And I'll check again. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Hello?
Hello.
That's a lot better.
I can hear you loud and clear now.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I don't actually know what to do here.
Rabbi Laura, do you have a computer nearby that you could
Yeah.
Yeah, you would be able to join back into the
We're moving into a different space, and we're suggesting that folks, is this any better?
Yes, much better.
All right, so all right, here we are.
All right.
We are, is that, so sound is good?
Yes, we can hear
Sound
you.
is better?
Can everyone hear?
Yes, okay.
Much better.
What's that? Mark, will you let me know if I should keep teaching?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. Everything is coming in very clear. Did you need assistance with?
Okay. All right. Yes. So here we are practicing resilience. It's beautiful. And thank you to everyone, to folks online and in person, who are just, the sense I get is that people are just really open to and appreciative of, no one is a stranger to moving through the crunchy places that are also just about experimentation with technology, and time and place and space. And just as the Psalms are meant to transcend time and place and space, so is Zoom, and we're working with that. Okay. Okay. So that was raised, Steve raised, untroubled security, I shall never be shaken. Adonai, when you pleased, you made me stand sturdy as a mountain. When you hid your face, I was terrified. And just to recap a little bit of what was shared there, that sense of, something I can certainly relate to, that there are times that feel kind of that untroubled security. The word that Steve offered for that was naivete. The sense of not really knowing what you don't know, and perhaps operating from a confidence that's based on not knowing what you don't actually know, and only having been shaken, having been destabilized, perhaps by a very challenging experience, and perhaps just by the everyday ups and downs and pitfalls of lived experience, that it actually, that was what helped verse 8 come to life, that with God's help, with Adonai, you made me stand sturdy as a mountain. And Steve was saying that a mountain, that sense of actually finding your feet again after you have wobbled a bit and you really have been shaken, is just a deeper knowing that you're okay than that initial naivete of, I think I'm okay, everything's fine, because I don't know any better. Which is not an invitation to walk on eggshells. It's just an acknowledgement that life itself is going to knock you off balance a little bit, and that all the more so knowing when you have that sturdiness again, that's one indicator of tapping into your own resilience.
Can I just add one?
Please.
Piece?
Yes.
The way I interpreted when you hid your face, I was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
So with God's help, feeling that sturdiness, and then when God turned away, realizing that I actually could stand, that I didn't need that help ongoing, that I had learned through the experience of receiving God's help, and now I could feel my own strength and stand.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So what Steve was sharing there was that actually, after having had that experience and feeling that strength and liftedness, that endured over time, to have that sense that actually I can stand on my own. I have a strength in me that's going to continue to allow me to stand. So it's not about a momentary getting back up after stumbling, but actually enduring feeling that you have that strength to stand. That's beautiful. And to feel less alone, it sounds like. That initial, when you hid your face, is a startling feeling. And then to finally find yourself in a place of sturdy ground. Really nice. And that motif of God hiding God's face, it comes up a lot in the Psalms. And sometimes it comes up with anger, a real, like, how dare you hide your face from me? I need you. I need help. I feel alone. And that's certainly an emotion that That is it's understandable, particularly in the depths when I'm really feeling that sense of, how could it get any worse, or I'm really struggling here. And one thing that I love that the psalmist dares to do is sometimes call God out with that anger of, where are you? You've hid your face from me. And here the psalmist is wrestling with that. The psalmist does know that depth of feeling when they feel abandoned, and they also. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, exactly. Beautiful. So what Ellen's noting here is that what this psalmist has found to move through in this particular poem, what helped them when they felt like God hid God's face, was this call to listen. That I don't need to be angry, but there is a little bit of a reconciling or a reckoning, and a saying, like, what good is it to you to leave me alone and to leave me to suffer? Listen to me, be my helper. And there's a real vulnerability in that. I think that one thing I think about with resilience is that it's not the same as self-sufficiency in the sense that actually an enormous piece of resilience in many situations of the ups and downs and navigating those is to be able to call out for help. Be my helper is to me, that's such a statement of strength, to acknowledge I need a helper, be my helper. Yeah, Cindy.
It also seemed that the psalmist was saying that it's a two-way street, that God needs me in order to exalt him, and it's a relationship, and that it has to be two-way.
Yes, beautiful. So another comment about the kind of back and forth between God and the psalmist here is that there's an indication that it's a two-way street, that there's effort coming from both sides. There's effort from Adonai to be present, and there is also effort and growth on the part of the psalmist to do some of their own work of pulling themselves up from the deep. So it's not exclusively one way or another. We're having another delightful interruption here at PTBE, which is our preschoolers. Our preschool class they look like they're clucking like chickens and like walking through our hallway. And I think sometimes I've been working a lot with our teenagers, so I'll share that when it comes to teaching about resilience, and particularly the way we absorb the impact of disappointments or challenges, that teens and kids really have that transparency about going through the ups and downs in a really visceral way that is sometimes such a helpful teacher as well. And also have real access to their bodies. Like I just see our littlest guys kind of like really just emoting with their whole selves, what it is that they're going through in their day, and that I find that very inspiring. I'm wondering if anyone, do you want Mark to see if anyone has a comment online before we continue, or should I just continue? I want to give him Mark. Okay. All right. Hearing. I'm just gonna keep moving and listen, and we're gonna read the psalm one more time. And this time, I want you to imagine for yourself. I want you to really listen for the physicality in the psalm and think about what this is calling you to, particularly just and thinking particularly about that last line. You turn my mourning into dancing. What is animating? What are the verbs that stick out to you here? And how might this help you when you're thinking about not only the intellectual work of Elul, but also where your being is called to really focus on resilience in this month. I'm gonna read it again. A Psalm of David, a song for the dedication of the house. I will exalt You, Adonai, for you drew me up as if from a well, and my enemies could not gloat over me. O Adonai, my God, I cried out to you, and you healed me. Adonai, you have drawn my entire being up from Sheol, sustained my life, kept me from descending into a pit. Sing to Adonai, you devoted ones, and give thanks to God's renowned holiness. For God's anger is momentary, but God's favor is for a lifetime. One may weep by night, and by morning rejoice. I used to say in my untroubled security, I shall never be shaken. Adonai, when you pleased, you made me stand sturdy as a mountain. When you hid your face, I was terrified. To you, Adonai, I call out, and to you I plead for mercy. What profit is there in my blood from my descent into the deep? Can dust praise you? Can it proclaim your steadfastness? Listen, Adonai, and be merciful to me. Adonai, be my helper. You have turned my mourning into dancing, have undone my sackcloth, and girded me with rejoicing, that my being might chant psalms to you and not keep silent. Oh, Adonai, my God, I will ever praise you. So, in the interest of bringing our whole selves to this psalm, I want you to now sit with, I'm inviting us now to sit with one of the lyrics, perhaps even just one verb that's coming to you now, or something that is really, yeah, and to sit with it in your body. We're going to sit in silence for about a minute, and then the invitation is, if you want to think about a movement or a gesture that maybe helps you to animate that verse. And the beauty of Zoom here is that there's a little bit of anonymity. If you want to close your camera and do your own interpretive movement, and for those in person, we'll just experiment with as we do. But particularly thinking about some of these lines, like you drew my entire being up from Sheol, you drew me up. That's, I think about that being lifted up. Perhaps it's in singing. Perhaps it's the weeping. Perhaps right now what is really most resonating with you is the weeping. And perhaps it's the hiding, and perhaps it's the dancing. So yes, we're gonna take a 2-minute pause now, 1 minute for you to really just sit with the lyrics themselves. And then 1 minute to imagine one motion, one lyric that you might want to animate for yourself now. And I'll keep track of time. And I'm going to turn my camera off so that everyone kind of has the chance to be with their own experience for just a few minutes. Invite you now, if you are ready to practice taking one of those verses and just animating it with your own gesture, something that'll anchor you in what's coming up for you right now, whether it's an emotion or an intention or a desire, based on one of the lyrics of the Psalms. right. I'm going to go on faith that everyone found the experience they needed to find there, and perhaps we can continue it. Just a little bit of a taste. And I'm really, of course, curious. And if you want to share with me your reflections, I actually offer and will send out to everyone who joined the class a 10-minute practice that's a little bit more extended, that can be done alone or in a group, that starts with a 3-minute guided body scan meditation that's sort of dedicating the body house to God, and thinking about just returning to the home that is your body. And then a 3-minute stretching inspired by the lyric, "You brought my soul up from the deep." Finally, a 3-minute of just expressive dancing or movement from "You've turned my mourning into dancing." And then a closing chant to bring breath into the day. It's something that I have been trying to do, actually inspired by my spiritual director, Wendy Lash, who noticed that I was really intellectualizing a lot of the things I was hoping to grow into in the new year, and was just recommended allowing some movement to move through what growth actually looked like there. And I say that, and I think my final thought on this psalm is that when it says, "You've turned my mourning into dancing," again, to echo what Steve shared earlier, it's not from a place of naivete or disregard or undercounting of of the depths of mourning, and of grief and of any kind of challenge. And when I think about dancing particularly, I think of it as an expression that is kind of beyond words expression of everything that you're feeling. And you do not need to be a dancer, a self-defined dancer, to feel that, but that it's to allow it to move through you. And I think of that as so much of the work of Elul is to allow all of our feelings to belong, and for all of them to move through us and to feel animated, and to at least hang on to that resilience, the sense that we can absorb an impact, even a particularly challenging impact, and soften and move and absorb it in a way that allows us to end on a note, as this psalmist does, that actually I can take off the heaviest layers of my mourning, and though I may have wept through the night, I can still access joy, and I can shake off the sackcloth, the traditional clothing of mourning, to be able to sing a new song. And that song is informed by the mourning, by the challenge, as much as it's informed by the joy. But that you can stand on your own 2 feet, you can stand on the mountain with a little bit more confidence in your experience moving forward. I wish we had time to move through a few other psalms, and again, I'm really happy to share resources that I've prepared on 3 different psalms. And the other 2 psalms, they also include a 10-minute practice that you can do that mostly is about meditation and reflection. And those psalms speak to also some of the darker experiences of challenge and loss and doubt. And if that's part of what your Elul is bringing up for you, I certainly would be welcome chatting about that, or meeting and talking about that at another time. I did want to leave us on a psalm that's a more contemporary psalm. Another shout out to an author that I love, who's been really moving to me and has helped me to think about the Psalms with a little bit more of a contemporary lens, is Debbie Perlman. She wrote this book, Flames to Heaven, New Psalms for Healing and Praise. Really wonderful reflection. She particularly was thinking about her own healing journey through a year. And some of the songs are associated with Rosh Chodesh or Erev Shabbat. And some of the songs are just songs on uncertainty, songs on serenity, songs on leaving and change. And she has a psalm that is particularly for a new day and for Rosh HaShana that I thought would be a nice one for us to end on here. Let me move into today, time maker, with a firm footing. With your name upon my mouth, I translate my praises into action, repairing my section of the world. You recall me to my story. You let me describe its sequel. At day's beginning, you comfort me, offering a hand filled with courage to sustain my work. Let me glimpse tomorrow, eternal planner, with eager memories, breathing deeply to set my heart to the rhythm of creation. I continue your work. You bring me to my beginnings, to the beginnings of your people, connecting my days to all other days, tying my work to the work of your hand. I thank you all again for being so patient and flexible with our technological experiments here, and wish you a really meaningful Elul, LLC. Those of you who are at the Rabbi's Roundtable, and if this chat has sparked something in you, if you have questions and comments that you weren't able to share, I really welcome your feedback and thoughts there. And I'll turn it back to Mark, but just thank you all again for joining this.